I'm Bruce Buno. I'm one of the volunteers here at the Jimmy Doolittle Heritage Center. I'm going to talk to you about the C-7A Caribou. That's the aircraft behind me. The C-7 is a cargo aircraft, fairly small cargo aircraft that was used primarily in Vietnam in the early 1960s through about 1973. The C-7 was designed and built by the de Havilland Aircraft Company. That's a company in Canada. It makes some other aircraft that operate in short field operations, such as the Buffalo, and the C-7 was kind of a workhorse for us over in Vietnam. It was able to go into some landing strips that were made of dirt, grass, steel planking, and could be even as short as 1,000 feet. I flew the aircraft in Vietnam for a year, 1969 and 1970. During the year that I was over there, I flew about 1,000 sorties, so I got to go into quite a few different fields over in Vietnam. Got to see what the capabilities of the aircraft are. It could do a mission that pretty much no other aircraft could do, although it didn't carry a very large load, maybe 24 passengers or 5,000 pounds of cargo, but it was able to operate out of those really small fields when the Army needed some support. The aircraft was first used by the Army in the early 60s, and about mid-1960s, the Air Force took over the mission and flew it until its retirement out of the combat area. The C-7A Caribou was affectionately known as the Boo to those who flew it, and it was capable of carrying all kinds of different cargo, but normally about 4 or 5 pallets. The pallets that we carried were not the big ones that they carry on 141s and C-5s, but they were 4x4 wooden skids. Within the aircraft cargo compartment area, that's about all you could fit, based on the amount of weight that you could carry. The kinds of things that we carried could be anywhere from bullets to groceries. We were often resupplying the Special Forces personnel out on forward bases with their rations, or perhaps with their soda, or perhaps even something more important than that, like a case of steaks. Other times we would carry live animals. We might carry some vegetables, or we might carry some pigs. I even had the pleasure one time of carrying a water buffalo. Phew, did that stink. When the Air Force was flying the C-7s, we had a crew complement of 3. Normally had a pilot and a co-pilot who sat up front, and then an engineer or a loadmaster who really didn't have a position. He had crew duties, but he didn't have a position. He normally sat in the cargo compartment hooked up to an interphone cord. One of the things that's interesting about a C-7 cruise operation is that it took 2 people to do everything. It took 2 people to refuel the aircraft, took 2 people to load cargo, took 2 people to unload the cargo. So the co-pilot or pilot would always get out of the seat when we were getting rid of the cargo at a forward base and help the engineer or loadmaster get it off the aircraft, and likewise help him get it back on. When it came time to refuel the airplane, one guy would normally do the majority of work for the refueling, while the other one might test out what the aircraft is or make sure that everything was grounded. And the aircraft was refueled, as we would say, over the wing with a hose up over the top. In Vietnam, when it's 110 degrees outside, it's probably 140 degrees on the top of that wing. Be real careful when you do that. One of the best missions for the C-7 was airdrop, when the aircraft was truly called upon to be able to support the troops in a forward base where they might have a real small drop zone. We were called upon in 1970 to be able to resupply a Special Forces base that no other aircraft or helicopter could deliver goods to. So we got some folks specially trained to be able to operate into this area, and it was really great to be able to get things into the field and prevent them from being overrun by the North Vietnamese enemy troops. Something that's fairly unique in the C-7 and is pretty much used in the de Havilland aircraft is that they have the throttles overhead instead of forward or on either side. So it was a new thing for people to learn how to operate a set of throttles that were over your head, and you kind of would get into a relaxed mode as you'd have your hands hanging over the top, but you'd also get pretty tired. The C-7 was capable of operating into a field, as I said, about 1,000 feet, sometimes less than that, and it could stop in about 200 feet. If it were on hard surface. It had reversible props, and what that meant is you were going to be able to get thrust in reverse to slow them down. To do that, they would pull the throttles all the way aft, push up, and then push the throttles a little bit forward. That would give them reverse thrust to be able to stop the aircraft pretty quickly, and then lean on the brakes very hard. When I was talking about airdrop, what the duties would be there would be shared between the pilot and co-pilot and the engineer or loadmaster. In an airdrop mission, the pilot would be primarily concerned with keeping the aircraft on course, visually looking for what the target is, and then coordinating with the crew for when the exact time should be to be able to put the cargo out the back of the aircraft. The co-pilot would be responsible for ensuring that the aircraft was on speed, on altitude, and he'd give the signal to be able to drop either people or cargo out the back. He would use the jump light indicators, would normally be a red light as I got within a couple of minutes of the drop zone, and then go to green light when it was the correct time to go. That might be done by the pilot saying go for green light or go for drop, or it might be done by the engineer. The engineer, on the other hand, his responsibility is to ensure that the cargo is going to go out the door cleanly, and in some cases he would be used to be able to say when they are over a drop zone. Normally when you had parachutists who were going to be going out the back of the aircraft, there would be a drop master or a jump master who would be looking out the side of the aircraft to indicate when he was on the zone. We would be able to hit a target within about 150 or 200 feet, unheard of in big aircraft, but easy in an aircraft as slow and low as we were flying.